Welcome everyone to our second in our series of webinars presented by Associate McKay Management. I think there was the disclaimer, or there is a disclaimer here, just letting everyone know, as I mentioned a few moments ago, that we are recording this event, so it'll be available for future digestion for folks on demand. So just if you have any, aversion to being recorded, whether it's your name being on screen or comments or what have you, or certainly any confidential information, just want to make that disclaimer up front. With that, again, welcome, and thank you for this is our second session. We did one exactly a month ago, our first one that was really about board director and HOA management 101. This particular topic is around transitioning from a developer-led to a homeowner-led board of directors. So hopefully it's useful, particularly those of you that might be joining from a community that's either in transition or pending a transition. And I'll introduce our speakers in a moment. We've got some great speakers and panelists that can add a lot of value for this. So with that, I'll continue going. Our first speaker is Alex Ricks. You see him there on the screen. Alex, I'll just defer to you. Maybe if you want to introduce yourself. I hyped you a bit in our pre-reading, but if you want to just tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your credibility to speak on this topic would be great. And we can see you talking, but we can't hear you. At least I can.
Oh no.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Alex. Not yet. You're having technical problems too. Maybe with that, I'll ask, while you're working on that, I'll ask maybe Mandy to introduce yourself to the folks that might be attending as well.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. So I'm probably not a resident expert yet. I live in Fox Hollow here in Pell City. It's Fox Hollow 2. And we are currently going through the transition. So we're probably right in the middle where Rosh Coleman, our developer, is turning over control to the homeowners. So I have a background in mergers and acquisitions. I'm a fractional chief of staff by day. And then at the same time, I've been trying to kind of rally the community to, raise awareness to the situation. We've been developer-led for the past 5 years. So for us, it's all like a first time being homeowner-led. Hopefully that's enough.
Yes, it is great. Thank you, Mandy. And the reason I asked Mandy to join is we've been communicating the last 2 months or so, and she's really been great, I think, as a good example of the kind of leadership and interest and community passion that's probably necessary for a successful transition. And I think maybe some lessons learned even from her experience, maybe looking back over the last couple of years, things maybe that she wished she would have known 6 months ago or 12 months ago that could have helped her or her community. And then until Alex is ready, Misha, you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Absolutely. Misha Hamrani. I am currently the Vice President of Operations for the Associate McKay branch. Been in the real estate industry for over 35 years, from commercial, multifamily, and association management. I'm looking forward to tonight's topics. It's something very near and dear to my heart. However, I have been in a position where I was director of our maintenance and construction division. So as I flow into my new role, I look forward to bringing some of my background, experience, and knowledge of developer properties to the Associate McKay operations side, and hope to make that a little more smooth transition for everyone.
Thank you, Misha. And then Alex, are you live with us or not yet? Maybe he's having audio trouble. Alex, feel free to chime in whenever you get your audio up and running. And I don't think I introduced myself. My name is Brian Stewart. I'm fortunate to serve as the leader here at our Associate McKay branch here in Birmingham. I joined this company back in December, bringing a lot of operations, strategy, and sales and marketing leadership to the table. So with that, we're going to press ahead with our agenda. So again, the topic for this evening is to developer to homeowner-led board of directors. So we're going to go through some content, and I'll ask any of our panelists, Misha, Alex, or Mandy, to chime in as we go through the content. I'm going to go through the content fairly quickly. And again, we'll be providing the slides as well as a recording of this. So don't feel like you're going to miss something if we do go pretty quickly, because I want to leave plenty of time for panel discussion. And then I prepared a few Q&A questions and answers from things we've already experienced in this realm. And then we'll open it for anyone that's on the call to ask questions or to share some of their own lessons learned or experiences as well. So with that, we'll jump straight into the content. So to start, kind of what is a HOA transition? Just to explain, obviously it's the process of shifting, in this case, from developer or builder-led control to homeowner-led HOA. Really, as Mandy can attest to, I think the planning and execution and a smooth transition is really, really important to maintain stability and harmony in the community. And I'm hopeful Mandy will talk about some of the things she's worked on with her fellow residents and neighbors to help increase the level of awareness and education about the developer role, our role as McKay, Associate McKay as the homeowner association management company, and then sort of their role as residents as well as the homeowner-led board of directors. So the reason this is really important, and really the whole reason our company exists, is to help preserve and protect and grow homeowner values by maintaining standards, community governance, and then ultimately the resident satisfaction. So the developer-controlled HOA, usually as developers, acquire land and begin developing a community, they create an HOA or a POA or whatever the legal structure is to help manage and maintain the community standards around, what the houses or properties look like, what it takes to get something approved in terms of architectural review, and then just general upkeep of the community. At times, developers can appoint board members. Generally, I think, others feel free to chime in. It's individuals that are part of their company. Generally speaking, they're not usually residents from the beginning. And ultimately, in the beginning, the developer sort of holds all the cards, literally and figuratively, based on the fact that they are the ones driving the development of the HOA. They would be the ones filing the paperwork or us on their behalf to establish the HOA. And in a lot of cases, they may be the sole board member or the sole person making decisions related to the HOA early on. And as you might know, if you're in a developer-led community or if you've read your bylaws, a lot of times the way the voting is allocated in terms of how many votes a developer may get versus a homeowner may be weighted for the developer early on until the transition occurs. And then really, if you think of it from the developer's point of view, for them, it's really about completing construction of the community, selling all the units as quickly as possible, and then maintaining the quality of any amenities, attractiveness of the communities to ensure people are, attracted to purchase a home in the neighborhood. In some cases, we've seen developers engage homeowners for various committees, particularly things like landscaping or architectural review, to try to include homeowner input and voices in how the HOA may be running or governing or decisions or policies that might be implemented. That isn't always the case. But I would argue that's probably a best practice to ensure there's good communication and as much transparency as possible between the developer and the homeowners as possible.
Brian,
I'll check. Alex, are you live with us?
Yeah, I
Awesome.
am live with you.
All right. Well, I'll call a timeout and ask
piggyback
Alex to introduce himself, because I definitely want Alex to chime in as we go through here, because he has tons of experiences he'll talk about now.
Yeah. So sorry about the technical difficulties there. I didn't get finally signed in here, but I started my HOA life, kind of surreptitiously through in 2008. I was working for a company that did all the flooring for developers and builders. And another gentleman was working at a developer who was buying all the land. So he was their land acquisition manager. He saw the writing on the wall and was able to take down all of their HOAs that they had that he was helping manage, and started a company. He had 12 associations, and I had a relationship with a lot of the developers in my role. And so him and I came together, and I pitched it to D.R. Horton, and we got 12 of their associations in one fell swoop. We doubled the size of our company. And so moving on to 2015, Associate came and purchased us. But as a whole, the company that we had called Blue Mountain Community Management was solely based on developers and working with developers and working with associations in this exact scenario of transitioning from a builder to a homeowner run board. And so we got a lot of experience working with developers. In fact, we got so much trust with developers and the transition that we were able to accomplish to homeowners that they would bring us into the planning for the communities. We would work with them when they were looking to buy land, if they were looking to develop it, and then they would bring their plans to us, and we would talk to them about what's going to work best for them, what's going to save them money and the association money in the long term. Planning what they were going to do with the landscaping, where should drip irrigation go, what should not, if they were looking at a park, what were the things that we heard from homeowners that they really liked. We utilized surveys that we would provide to the homeowners if they could get surveys back to the developers on what they saw in the community, what made the association or the community attractive and why they bought in there. We would run all of their regular surveys through us to get to the homeowners to get feedback on how it was working. One of the things, Brian, you just said there, the engagement, developers are not in the HOA world. That's not what they look to be in. They're in the construction world. And that's where we have to kind of draw that line and understand that a developer is a for-profit. Their main drive is their shareholders, their owners making a profit in building a house. Obviously, they want their homeowners to be happy. They like the reputation, but sometimes homeowners want more, right? But that doesn't make sense to a company that is looking at the bottom line. And so, we in the middle have to, as an HOA management company, have to figure out how to make those two items see eye to eye and explain it to everybody and both sides. And I think that's always a tough thing. You're going to see, just like you said, Brian, builders and developers can be very strict on their ACC applications because they're going to want uniformity. They're going to want to see their vision all the way through until the end, even though the homeowners may see it differently because we never know who's going to buy into an association. But once they do and the turnover occurs, that's when the homeowners get control. That's when they can change things. That's when they can be a little bit more lenient on the ACCs. They can figure out how they envision their community. And that unfortunately doesn't happen until the administrative control is turned over from a developer to a homeowner run board. So a little about myself plus a little bit.
Very good. And also for context, Alex is he runs the Associa Hill Country, it's called, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Here in Austin, Texas.
Awesome. Again, thanks for joining, Alex. We look forward to your expertise as we continue the discussion. With that, I'll keep going to cover the content here.
Yeah.
So timelines, as you can see, some of these are spelled out in the agreement or specific timeline, whether it's an event or a trigger. As Mandy mentioned, it's been 5 years. They've been as a developer-led community, and they're just now going through the transition. So it depends on the community, depends on the state, depends on the agreement. But it's really just a transfer or a handoff of control through board formation. So what, as I mentioned, the developer board may be one individual or a few individuals. And then the process that, candidly, we help to walk organizations and communities through is gaining interest of people in the community to number one, to serve on the board, to volunteer to serve their community as a board member or an officer of the board, and then helping with the election process to make sure that's done in accordance with the bylaws, done in a timely way and done in a professional way that would stand up to scrutiny or any questions. It should be outlined in the governing documents. It may, give a general timeline. We like to, put a date on the calendar and then reverse engineer the planning and execution process from there. And again, that's really our role, is to help with the planning, education, and execution through the partnership.
Brian, I'd like to add on to your statement about that. It's very critical for us as a management company to understand the developer's projection for those turnover triggers. And then that way we can do our turnover planning 6 to 12 months out and get those committees underway. And then 3 to 6 months out, have an actual turnover meeting. And then about 0 to 6 months in, a post turnover type meeting to cover all of the aspects and policies and procedures that the newly elected board wants to put into place. So all those trigger events should be outlined at least 12, 13 months in advance. And Alex could probably speak to that as well.
Yeah, and guys, if you're going through this process of moving from a developer association where they had the control that Brian spoke about earlier, and they're making decisions that maybe the association or the homeowners that are inside the association may not agree with, what ends up happening a lot of times is as soon as that board gets control, they try to change everything. They want to put all the things they have and all of the issues that they've seen over the last years, depending on the size of the association, how long it's taken to build out, they want to jump in and make all the changes. What I would caution about that, if you're going through this process, take bites. Don't try to take it all at once. I've seen too many boards try this and they get burned out. You're a volunteer, you're just not getting paid. Unfortunately, that's the case, and that's the laws that we can't pay board members. But if you take on too much, you're going to burn yourself out. These things take time to change, and sometimes they take votes. Sometimes they just take a lot of effort on the board's behalf to get these things to take hold. And what I would just caution is to take small things, make a list of the things you want to change, prioritize them, and pick the top 3. Knock those out in the first 6 to 8 months. Take the next 3, knock those out, and take the next group and knock those out. But if you try to do it all at once, it's just going to feel like this huge weight on top of you, on top of your regular life, on top of your regular job, and you're going to burn out and say, pass, and then none of those visions that you had are going to come to fruition. So just take your time on those and know that we're here to be your partner and help you through that, and we will guide you through that process to ensure that you don't feel that burnout, that we are taking the bites that we can, and we'll try to give you realistic timelines on when we can get those things done and when those things can happen. Sometimes it seems very easy, like this should just happen tomorrow. Unfortunately, sometimes there's some unwinding that needs to take place, or maybe even a vote, or there's a contract in place and we want to remove this landscaper that the builder put in place. And depending on your state laws, sometimes you can do that as long as you do it within the first certain amount of time period, or those contracts that the developer signed on your behalf take hold for you as well, right? So there are certain things we want to look at right off the bat. Certain things can go out a little bit longer, but we'll be able to walk you through those and help you out with those.
Very good. I'll ask Mandy. Mandy, does any of that sound familiar to you, given where you are at in your process of transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just going to hold all of my comments for the open session because I could go on. The timing is, read the documents. I don't know, I've been trying to tell people, read the documents. There is stuff on Town Square. Know what you are legally permitted to have. If it's not there, ask for it. So many people just haven't. And if they haven't because they really don't care, that's okay, but coming in at the 11th hour, all of a sudden, holy crap, this is actually happening. And I've got to know everything right now, but you've got some people that have already been doing the work on it. So for us, it's been 5 years, but I was kind of I almost giggled out loud because I found an article from 2019 where our developer estimated about 91 more houses were going to be built and then they'd be done. And that, we are definitely far past that. So, it's just nobody has spoken up and said anything. And every once in a while, you'll get pockets of people that want to speak up and complain because of various things. I'm one of them. And, and here we are. So patience is a virtue that is going to be key to get people through this. Patience, emotional intelligence. You understand that there are probably 190 homeowners in our community, all of these different personalities, different age groups, different psychographics. So it can get consuming. So there are different pockets of people that want different things. And we have to stay focused. What can we do what can we do right now? What do we want to do that's going to take time? What do we want to do that's going to cost a lot of money? Because there is that aspect of it, right? So our developer promised us a pool. We don't have a pool. It's the other HOA's pool. And, then we have some people like me, I'm going to say this out loud and it's okay if they don't want to vote for me, but I don't want a pool. I don't want to play in the pool. I'd like a park. I have an almost 3-year-old, but it's not one person or 3 people making that decision. You
Yeah.
get a group together, get your committees together, like, let's just plan this out, because I'm not going to say yes or no to something. You guys like do the math, do the project management, and then plan it out. And then so yeah, I mean, getting the community prepared, and just trying to, even right now, we have people that are speaking up. It's like they didn't think that this was happening, because we have had little pockets of people throughout the past 5 years try to start it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really important. And then having, like, honestly, I'm just going to advocate for Associa for a second and just say, like, having a third party to help with some things, like during the transition, is helpful. Otherwise, it's all going to fall apart, because, like, I mean, a community our size would not make it if we wanted to just go scorched earth.
Yeah.
We still have some things to get through. So, speaking up, asking questions, getting to know your neighbors. Check, you don't need a lawyer, like, look up the rules, read them, understand them, ask questions if you don't. And be patient, because it won't,
Yeah.
things won't change for the better overnight, unfortunately.
Great feedback. Thank you for sharing that. We'll push on. We'll obviously more time for discussion in a moment. Some of these things we've already discussed. I think that, as Meacha mentioned as well, the timeline, and then having a committee. To Mandy's credit, she sort of stepped up, and there's a whole story on how we connected originally and got the committee formed in her community. But I think she's done an awesome job rallying around, and even figuring out a small group to help with the initial planning. And then Mandy and I have been collaborating for her community, kind of together on this process, giving her the records that she and others were requesting, some that they already had access to her point that people just weren't aware they were already available or hadn't reviewed. And then we're in the process of they're actually voting right now in her community, and we'll know who the new board is here in a week or two. Some of these we've definitely talked about, but I think just talking about these is important. I think the misinformation or lack of communication and potential lack of trust, all parties are involved, the developer, the homeowners, and even us as the management company. I think there's can be misunderstandings if you're not clear in communication or not transparent in communication. And then I think, like Mandy, I know she has lots of experience, but I don't know, she's never served on an HOA board. So I think our role is also to help those new board members who may lack experience in this particular domain. Doesn't mean they're not smart people or great professionals. They just might not have served on an HOA. So it's really our role to help educate, inform, equip, train, guide, advise, all those things to help make that transition work, number one. And then number two, the ongoing governance and community engagement and value building is really what our end goal is, to help that be a long partnership that helps build that for your community. And then I think some of the developer discussions or decisions that may impact homeowners, and I know this was the case in Mandy's community, deeding of common areas that the developer, quite honestly, has the full right to do and is usually spelled out in the governing documents. May or may not be something homeowners are even aware of when it happens, and certainly may not get any input or a vote on. It might just happen. Hey, we're deeding these common areas or these detention ponds or retention ponds or what have you, or there may be maintenance that the developer has chosen to defer, or even having, low assessments based on sort of the initial community build and not really raising assessments as might be appropriate, particularly something that's gone on for like 5 years. So it may be surprising when the turnover happens and you realize, okay, assessments have either gone up or need to go up to cover what are essentially basic expenses of the HOA. And then, developers may be reluctant to relinquish control, particularly until the trigger point, or disclose or share certain information. I know in some of the discussions with Mandy, there were some documents and things that we weren't able to share initially until this transition process, because they were, our contract and relationship was with the developer as the board versus individual homeowners. So any comments there from anyone? If not, we'll keep pressing to make sure we have time for Q&A.
Yeah, and you raise a good point when you some folks are, they get confused about like who's in charge and who does associate work for. And at this point, until there is a turnover, you're working for Rush Coleman, but you're advocating for both sides, really. You're a middleman, right? And
Yeah,
while I don't have HOA experience, I think the closest I get is I've been a property manager. So I don't want to say it is absolutely the same thing. I
very similar. Yeah.
was in a town in Pennsylvania where we were buying and managing rental properties and working in conjunction with the city and code enforcement to keep them from tearing houses down. So we're like, no, like we'll get them, like get a house for like, I'm not even kidding, like $1,000,
Yeah.
put the money in to fix it up, and then all the rent would go back into it. So it's like a cleanup effort. But it was still dealing with the city and code enforcement and people. So a property manager is a middleman, and it's like I said, I mean, it's helpful, but also like I'm just gonna say like communication is just so important. People don't understand exactly what your role is. So luckily we were able to connect and then get a town hall going and get some communications going. But I know that there's still a long way to go in that regard for some folks, but I think some are feeling a lot better off.
Awesome. I think a lot of this we've already covered in terms of the difference in focus. As Alex mentioned, obviously the developer is his goal, or his or her goal, is to build homes and sell them for a profit. So that's really the most important thing, wanting to recoup their investment and then optimize their return on their investment. And then making sure the community stays, as designed or envisioned, at least until the turnover point. So houses continue to sell at the highest possible value. And then I think for homeowners, obviously it's similar, but more of a long-term view. Hey, this is an investment I'm making. For most people, I think, at least in the US, their home is the largest asset they've invested in or own. So it is really, really important. And then, maintaining the property values, the sense of community is obviously important. And then I think the just general satisfaction with the decision to buy and live in a neighborhood, I think, is all part of that equation. Some of these I think we've talked about as well. The transition committee, the communication, I think, is probably the most important piece from my experience, not only in this industry or this process, but really anything where there's a significant transition. It goes without saying, obviously, we're a management company, but whether it's Associa or any of the other high quality management companies, as Mandy mentioned, I think there really is a lot of value we can add, not only in the transition period, but in the ongoing sustaining growth of the community, particularly around the finances and the operation of the HOA. And then I think the other thing, as Mandy mentioned, is just reviewing and reading the documents really, and then being unafraid to ask what you might think would be a silly or dumb question. Like, there is no dumb question. Like, if you're not familiar with the terminology, there are some terms in those things that if you've never lived in or been on an HOA board, even some of the jargon might be off-putting. And then I think the other piece is, and really on us, is the association management and or the developer is just providing more education. And candidly, that's why we're doing this webinar. That's why we did one last month. That's why we're going to continue to do these every month, so we can put good, high quality information out there. That's not just an associate commercial, but really more valuable if you're a current homeowner or you're on a board or you're thinking about being on a board. Hopefully it's valuable for anyone. Some post-transition considerations. I think most developers kind of, once they're done, they want to be done. Maybe with rare exception, I'd ask Alex if he's seen that different, but I think they're ready to move on and, build the next community or what have you. And then really any legal issues that might be pending. And I will ask Alex to chime in around this idea of construction defects versus, contract disputes, and how developers and our communities might want to approach that to help inform board members. And then really educating the community on, okay, what is the HOA and how are they going to govern, and what are the roles of the board, and then more specifically of the president, the vice president, so people really understand who's doing what. And then I think equally important is so they understand what our role is in supporting their board and their community. So everybody is really clear on who's making decisions, on who's doing what, to avoid as much confusion as possible. And then much like this resource and the other board orientations that we do, is really making the time and effort and investment to educate all boards to sort of a minimum level of understanding. So we'll be doing that soon with whoever, gets elected in Mandy's community, having a session to help onboard them and get everyone to a common level of understanding. And then, whatever policies or procedures that might be missing in her association, helping them to decide what's best for them and then implement those effectively. So with that, I'll ask Alex, if you would address maybe this construction defect issue that you've seen.
Yeah, and so this kind of comes back to something you had earlier on, and actually Mandy touched on as well, was that trust and communication. Right, those are big, right? And so if we're communicating well and the developers communicating well, there's an avenue when there is a issue about construction or contracts, and then we're talking about disputes between those. As long as there's open line of communication, you can work through a lot of those. Excuse me. The developers are very cognizant of their reputation. Some builders are, national builders. Some are very regional. Some are mom and pops, right? They're just, they've got some land and they're going to develop it. They want to sell it. They just didn't want to pay someone to do it. They're doing it themselves. So sometimes they're shooting from the hip. But as long as we have an open line of communication with them and you ask the questions you can go through your management company. We prefer that. That way there's documentation of it. Sometimes you can just go directly to them. But if there is a dispute on any of those, like when we're talking about construction defect, those builders, especially if they are not like the mom and pop, and this is just a one-time development, which is rare, they're worried about their reputation. They want to fix things. Now, one of the things that you need to be cognizant about when you're talking about construction defect is when you're talking about homes, single-family homes, it's a lot harder to get a construction defect. You're usually working on warranty and your contract with that specific builder, right? So that's not something the HOA gets involved in. That's something between you and the builder developer, right? Now, if there's a land issue, like drainage issue or a structural issue on a common property that the developer built or contracted to be built, that's a different story. We can go back and talk to them. But when you're talking about shared walls, townhomes, condominiums, that's where you see a lot of construction defect. And the same thing goes there. The developer / builder is very cognizant about their reputation. If we communicate with them about the issues, they will want to come to the table. There's going to be a threshold there where attorneys have to get involved, right? And that's not something they obviously want to do. Sometimes it's just a money thing, right? And it's just about the money it's going to cost. And what I've found with my time in dealing with these, a lot of times when we engage with the developer / builder, depending on who the item is for, what we can do is get them to work with their vendors, work with their contractors, and we can avoid there's a cottage industry of construction defect folks that will, get an attorney involved. You have to pay the attorney, you have to pay these folks that drive up the price on things. But when we work with the developer / builder, what we're able to do is use their vendors, get it all corrected without the additional cost of attorneys and or the folks that are going to drive up the cost to everybody. Not saying that's not an avenue sometimes that we need to take to protect your asset, your home. That is sometimes needed. But I always feel like the first and best step is to communicate with the developer / builder and talk to them about the issues, get a clear communication about the issues. If testing needs to get done, do the testing. Do the things that we need to do to ensure that the issue is resolved amicably first. And if we can't come to something that we agree on, then we go to the next step. But too many times what I've seen is instead of even communicating with the builder, it's straight to an attorney. It's straight to, the last resort out there. And what that does is stops the communication, it stops any trust that can be built, and you get the builder putting up a wall. And that's just going to elongate that process, and you're not going to get everything you want out of that, right? There's going to be some additional costs involved. And I've never seen it work out well. Usually at the end of it, there's a big construction defect lawsuit, the attorneys get paid, it's $1 million and the fix is $1 million. They sell for $1 million, but then you have attorney's fees, and now you have 80% of that $1 million, and now you're having a special assess for the next 20% so you can do this and get this taken care of. when in the other avenue, you can get everything taken care of at no cost, right? Or very minimal cost comparatively. So that's what I would say about the construction defect side. But to fall back on that trust thing that Mandy said earlier, on all of these things, communication is key. When we're all communicating and talking with each other about some of the issues that we have, like Brian said, there's no poor question, there's no stupid question, there's no dumb question. It's ask the question. We want to make sure we can provide that answer to you, and we'll do everything we possibly can to get you that answer. We don't expect you to know the lingo or the jargon in our industry. We're an industry of acronyms, so sometimes I don't even know what they mean. I have to ask because they're very similar to 3 other ones. So feel free to ask us. We'll give you that information and provide that information to you as best we possibly can. And if we don't know it, we're going to go ask the attorney. We're going to go ask the question to make sure we're providing the accurate information to potential board members or homeowners. So thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Alex.
And to just touch on a little bit about that, construction defects and warranty disclosure should not come as a surprise after turnover has happened. And that's why I advocate so strongly to have a turnover committee, financial committee or finance committee, and a nomination committee. Those 3 are really key in the turnover process. So if you have a turnover committee, in most cases, and I can't speak for Fox Hollow, they have very limited common area.
Something.
Yeah, they have very limited common area, but if you have a turnover committee that can work closely with the management and the developer, those are legally required to be communicated to the HOA if there are any construction or warranty defects, and those have to be disclosed. So that would be part of that process. So that's just all I wanted to add to that.
Thank you, Misha. So to wrap up sort of the content, I mean, these are sort of, I would say, no-brainer conclusions. I think the key theme you've heard throughout is just the cooperation and communication. I would say even more importantly, transparent communication between all parties involved is really key. And then I think the well-executed plan is key and as well beneficial for everybody. And then I think the third leg on the stool is just community education. A lot of what Mandy spoke about earlier, working with both us and then her kind of one-on-one conversations, or I know their community has a Facebook group or town square, helping to educate other homeowners about what's going on and kind of where they're headed to make sure everybody's on the same page. So with that, we've already kind of been doing this, but I'll just ask, we'll do a round robin for Alex, Mandy, and Misha, and then just kind of give me your top 1 or 2 lessons learned, and then kind of your golden nugget for everyone advice-wise. And we'll just spin the wheel here and ask Misha to go first.
All right, read your documents. I'm a big advocate for committees. Some of your documents state and require committees during the process. If they don't, have your manager, have your management company advocate on your behalf to have those committees established for you. They're very critical in having community engagement, homeowner engagement. You learn a lot through that process. Owners begin to understand what their role as members are and what the role of the boards are during that process. So I would just say, moreover, read your documents, form those committees, and do it diligently.
Awesome. How about Alex? Will you share your 2 top lessons and 1 golden nugget piece of advice? It looks like your audio is back on.
Sorry, I keep muting myself.
Okay.
So I don't want to interrupt and make a noise or something. So,
Yeah.
honestly, the biggest thing, I think we've talked about it over and over again, is there's got to be trust in anybody that you're going to have or turn over the control of your association to. Your biggest asset, is that trust factor. And so if you don't have that trust, try to work with somebody, try to work with, the folks that you have here on the call, where we just want to, educate you. We want to work with you. It's always a great line for us to work with a developer and the homeowner board. So the more that you ask questions of us, the more we can identify where we need to focus. There's, like I said, always going to be that little bit of trust because, you know, the developer's got a different point of view than a homeowner does. They're looking at their bottom line. A homeowner's looking much longer term, right? They're going to want certain things, expect certain things, you know, and the homeowner's going to say, I want this and this, and the builder's going to say, well, it's not going to benefit me in selling homes. So why am I going to do this, right? So we're going to be stuck in the middle. You're going to not like those answers that the developer gives you. We want to make sure that you understand why those are, why they're making those decisions, and what we can do in the future. So if you ask us and you communicate with us, we're going to give you those answers and help build that trust so that, you know, when you do take control, you can get what you want. And then my little nugget I talked about earlier, be patient and don't bite off more than you can chew right at the beginning. A lot of boards, as soon as they get the control of the association, it's this scorched earth mentality where they don't like any of the contracts, don't trust the developer, thought that everybody was working for the developer / builder, and they just want to fire everybody. You know, honestly, some of those deals that you have are really good, right? The developers obviously have multiple contracts, and a lot of times we're getting a very good deal because it was with a contract with this builder / developer. And so just bid everything out, no issues there, but look at everything, right? Make sure that you have read your documents and understand what they're doing. Sometimes it might be a little overboard, especially on the landscaping. Developers, like Brian was saying, they want everything to look perfect for somebody who's coming into the community. They want them to buy the house there. It may not be needed and may be an extremely high price on the landscaping. But if you talk to that landscaper and you say, hey, we want to ratchet this back a little bit, and we only want this, they can come in at a very good price. So take a look at that and you know, try to understand what's coming down the pike. And again, don't bite off more than you can chew. Little things at a time.
Perfect. Mandy, how about you? Two lessons learned so far in your golden nugget so far in the process.
I'm gonna have to come up with a new golden nugget because I was saying patience, communication.
Yeah.
So like, I'll start with guys, like, you don't know what you don't know. No one person knows everything.
Yeah.
So get out there, meet your neighbors. Don't, you know, geez, come out of your shell. In situations like ours, you know, a lesson learned that know your rights as a homeowner. It doesn't mean call a lawyer and ask that lawyer.
Yeah.
Look it up yourself. Google, like ChatGPT, whatever. Like, just educate yourself. Know what it means. You know, I don't know. I honestly, standing here, don't know truly whether people who have moved into our HOA community know what it means to be in an HOA community. So before you even buy a house, know what it means. And now we're not a condo, so we don't have like, we don't have a pool, we don't have a tennis court, we don't have stuff, we don't have a common roof. But we have some things. It's minor, but it also is very expensive right now. So
Yeah.
because the developer is focused on their bottom line and not on how happy we're going to be, our developer, I'm guessing, doesn't care how happy we'll be in 5 years, but that I won't get too much into that, but just know your rights as a homeowner. You don't know what you don't know, so ask questions. And, you know, don't be afraid to ask the question. I am trying to encourage people in our Facebook group and in our community. I mean, I have spammed and littered every possible platform with like the heads up that this was coming. Brian, I don't know if we want to get into this right now, but I connected with Brian simply because my pet exploded. Like after it was, you know, I actually got a little warning notice because our babysitter was parked out front, and you know, so I started to look into the covenants, and I'm like, okay, well, I have a legal background. Let me read this. Like, what does this say? Okay, it says we can't park here for more than 2 consecutive days. She's only out there for a few hours, so I'm like, this is weird. Okay, this is the second time. I'm done. And I know that other people were getting the same kind of thing. So I just started speaking up on behalf of the community and myself, mostly for myself, you know, selfish, but I'm like, no, like we've seen these other things happen. It's happened a while. So we really need a change. And then it turned into reading into the documents more and looking and finding that clause in our documents that said that 60% or more of our homeowners could get together and actually have made a change a few years ago if we wanted to. We really could have. So the past is the past. Hindsight is 2020 is my golden nugget. Just like we're here now, we are all on the same team. You know, different personalities, strong personalities are going to come out during this time. Some will be helpful, some probably not so much. So like, that's why I try to get people to speak up, even if it's just in the Facebook group, so that other neighbors can meet you and then hear how you answer their questions, see how you respond to other people. And this is just like my advice to homeowners. My advice to developers, I have none. Just, you know, I know what your goal is. And then as far as management companies, you know, you've got a tough job, even just being a property manager, managing for other people, like you're in the middle, and it is a tough job, especially if the developer does not set you guys up for success and keeps you in the dark. So yeah.
Thank you, Mandy. And I'll just obviously I shared why I invited Mandy to this, but I think her neighbors and her community are very fortunate that they have her, because I think she's a great example of what you know, passion and a little bit of elbow grease and not being afraid to speak up and ask questions can really, really make a difference for your community. So if anyone watching this, you know, be the person in your neighborhood, perhaps that Mandy is for hers, that's willing to not, you know, step up and make a big stink about things, but just ask questions, form a relationship, start communicating, read the documents, et cetera. Because I think for her community, she's making all the difference. So anyway, that's enough of my Mandy commercial. Let's move on to the Q&A session. And I prepared some Q&As, and I'll just kind of walk through these. And again, some of this was prepared in my mind for those, you know, seeing the slides after this or watching the recording. So we'll quickly go through these because we have about 11 minutes left, so I want to make sure we have a good 10 minutes for Q&A from anyone watching. So here you see, you know, what are the key responsibilities of really any HOA board, particularly the homeowner-led board. You see the major buckets, clearly the finances of the community, the rules and policies like Mandy mentioned, enforcing the covenants of your neighborhood, maintaining any common areas if you have them in your neighborhood, communication, that probably should be the top one on the list, just making sure everyone is informed as possible. Anything legal, you know, making sure your community is in legal compliance with any rules and regulations, local ordinances, et cetera. And then I think often overlooked is the community building, just building a sense of community pride and meeting the neighbors, having social events, things like that, that really add the intangible value to a community beyond, you know, what amenities might be available. Second question, how can homeowner-led boards improve community engagement? I think a lot of these things we've already talked about, and some of these I'm sure maybe we'll be addressing with Mandy and whoever gets elected to their board. How do we plan some things in their community to build these? But you see the list. Some of these are hopefully common sense, but I think one thing I would advocate for, and I think Mandy's done a good job as well, is like really encouraging people to participate, not only volunteer to maybe serve on the board, but also to serve on a committee or to serve in other ways in the community. I think the more people that are engaged and active, number one, I think it's, I like to tell people if you're not engaged or serving or helping in some way, you sort of forfeit your right to complain about things unless you're part of the solution. So anyway, those are ideas on how to help improve community engagement. Maximizing homeowner and community values. Clearly, the main reason HOAs exist is primarily for this reason. So certainly maintaining any of the common areas, financial management, both adequate reserves for things that might need capital investments longer term. Like an example would be if your community has a swimming pool or a clubhouse, you know, long-term capital improvements to resurface the pool deck or to put a new roof on the clubhouse, things like that. The community engagement, and then consistent enforcement of whatever the community rules and regulations are related to parking on the street or trash cans or weeds or whatever might be applicable, but just doing that in a way that's very consistent and defensible about how decisions are made. And then again, communication, you've heard that throughout. Enforcing rules while maintaining a positive community atmosphere. I think some of that is where we come into play. You know, don't don't have the board be the ones, delivering the compliance related decisions or news. Really, that should be our role as the management company, saying this is the violation and this is the covenant. It's whatever. So I think that's the other part is having us, if you choose to have a management company, do that for you, and then doing that in a very consistent, professional way. It doesn't create questions. So with that, I went through those quickly because I want to make sure we have plenty of time. So for anyone on the call, I think it's an open mic. Feel free to come off mute and ask any question you may have, or if you have comments or feedback. We'd love to answer those over the next 8 minutes.
Don't be shy.
And if not, we'll end 7 minutes early, but we're here to answer any questions you may have. Or if you have any feedback about this content or other topics you'd like to see us cover in future webinars, feel free to unmute and let us know here as well.
One thing I did want to point out really quick is that with our committees, once we found out what was happening, we created basically like 4 categories of committees. There have been several people reaching out to me saying they don't necessarily want to be on the board, but they do want to help. They have certain skills. They want to do certain things. So I suggested, how about the finance and budgeting committee? You have a finance background. You don't exactly want to be, you have experience with P&Ls or income statements, and you don't exactly want to be on the board, but you could help in this capacity if you'd like. Or, you really want to pool, you have project management experience. Let's be on the amenities and land use committee. Community engagement, just things like, anything that I've done, I've not done it all by myself. There are people on this call, there are people in the group, my neighbors that have just all been willing to, like, I have a printer, I can print out flyers, I can help walk things around in this on this street, and it's getting everybody together. So when the time comes, you don't necessarily have to be on the board. You can be involved, but be on a committee. So our committees aren't super formal right now, but at some point after the transition, we'll need somebody to lead those. And I think of this as, like, hate to use the word corporate, but from a corporate perspective, you've got your president and your people in their different your marketing department, your operations department, your finance department, and they have people that work with them. So not one person is responsible for all of it. And I get how, there's a board president ultimately signing for, but it's not one person doing everything, and that's our goal. So I don't know if anybody has any.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on that, guys. Getting the committees set up with a charter so they have an outline of where they should be going is paramount, right? You're not going to be, no one wants to be on the board forever. And if you don't have that community engagement and you're not setting up committees, it's hard to get that continuity between board members. Everybody has a term limit that they have to abide by and or get reelected. If they get reelected, then they're choosing to continue. But not every board member is going to want to continue. So getting that community engagement through committees will allow somebody to get kind of ease their way into wanting to be on the board. And that allows there to be a lot of continuity between the board and the association. So you don't have this, we're going to go all the way this way, and then a new board's elected, and we're going all the way this way, right? When you have a committee base of people that may end up being on the board, it allows you to kind of stay in that middle, and you don't have these big, huge pendulum swings. And you're wasting money by going down this road, and then you waste money by going down the other road. It's paramount that you get that, and it really does help the community when you have community engagement. When we have the barbecues, when we have these things, you'd be very surprised at the control that the real estate agents have over the value of your house. If you can really set a precedence inside and you work with the realtors in your market, they know that you're very community based, and they will sell your house or talk about your community by name and by reputation. That will drive the home values up. It'll sell homes quicker. It's a great way to increase the value of your home inside your community, is by getting that community engagement. People want to live in an association that is open, inviting, and has a lot of events, and that they're able to bring their kids to, or go to a barbecue, or have an Easter event, or a Christmas event. They like those things. Not everybody has to do it, but there are a bunch of people that do like to do those things. and it does help the value of your home when you have those options.
Question.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, how do you guys, I guess, recommend for communities that are potentially getting ready to go into transition? How do you start to, who is responsible for setting that process? Is it the management company or the builder? Or both?
I'll defer that one to Misha. Misha, you want to answer that?
Typically what happens is the declarant's or the developer is gonna communicate with us, hopefully proactively, at least 15, 18 months out before turnover is even started, so that we can form some committees. That way we can, put out feelers, make announcements for the turnover committees, things of that nature. Now, sometimes you have developers that are last minute sometime, and I think Mandy could speak to this. We got notice 45 days, 60 days advance notice of that turnover. And that particular developer did not care to have any committees formed. We went to them specifically for that. So our hands were tied a little bit. But typically, if we're working proactively with those developers, we understand what our position is 12, 18, 24 months out, and we could start working on soliciting interest for any committees for the turnover process.
So in terms of homeowners, then how do we know?
So we
Like-
would send out notification letters. We'd post on Town Square that we're forming these committees and get interest. Ask for your letter of interest, what you bring to the table, if it's a finance or budget type committee, if it's a turnover committee, what do you feel your qualifications are? And then we would form those committees or help you form those committees, actually.
Okay. And so I think my other question, I guess, to piggyback on that is, and maybe I need to talk to our rep or whoever. But if, I guess my biggest question is kind of trying to be proactive. Like you said, sometimes the developer may not tell you guys for, 45 days or sometimes a year and a half or what have you. I would say that we just don't want to be in the 45-day kind of situation.
Yeah.
We'd love to be more proactive than that. But we don't really, we know that we're coming to the end. We know of what we were told before, but we don't have anything in writing or nothing that, that has happened other than we've seen these meetings that you guys are doing on Town Square. So I guess, just trying to be proactive and trying to be sure that we're not on the 45-day end of something. Sure. And we don't have any idea of how those things kind of proceed.
Yeah.
So I might ask, what community are you in?
Lake Wilbourn.
Lake Wilbourn. Okay. Good to know.
Sorry.
We'll make a note to follow up with you, with your community specifically. And I can't see your name, but Misha, I don't know if you have her specific name, or if you can put it in the chat, we'll make sure
It's Shani, Shani, last name Wilson, Wilson.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Any last questions? I know
Mandy
we're
could actually speak. I'm sorry, Brian.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I
think Mandy wanted to
really
speak
quick.
to
Thanks,
that.
thanks, Misha. Yeah, no, just really quick. I was gonna say, like, you don't have to wait. Read your CC&Rs. I don't know if they would have access to their bylaws, but whatever, like, read those. It'll say when a turnover can be expected, and you do not have to wait for a management company to tell you, hey, you can start forming a committee now. Like, you can get people involved. If you don't have a Facebook group, create a Facebook group, and then just tell your neighbors, spread the word. That's what we did. We've grown pretty rapidly on our Facebook group.
Yeah, ours has been very vibrant since day one.
Yeah, and you can just take the lead and get people prepared and just let them know, like, things aren't really going to be set in stone exactly, or they can be. I mean, you guys get to decide. So yeah, you don't have to wait.
And Shani, I think Signature typically does have a turnover committee that they work with, or a nomination committee. So we'll get Andrea to look into that for you, because there may already be some kind of committee in place. I know that there was for Stockton for their turnover, that they worked directly with the board for approximately 1 or 2 years prior to the turnover of Stockton. So
yeah, we don't have anything in place just yet.
Okay.
Okay.
We're waiting.
Understood, got it.
Thank you.
I'll ask, yeah, any one last question, if any,
Yeah,
or comment?
I do have one, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry I actually tuned in a little bit late, so I apologize for missing some of this meeting.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for hosting this. I would like to know, so I am on Town Square and I'm in Trace Crossings. I don't know if you guys are affiliated with a specific neighborhood or if, there are representations of specific neighborhoods here. But I'd like to know, I got my bylaws through Town Square, but all I'm seeing are the bylaws for my specific community and not Trace Crossings bylaws. And so where would I go for that? And also to become a part of a committee, where do we get the information about who to contact?
So,
To-
Simone, Trace,
Yeah.
Trace Crossing is a master association
Uh-huh.
that is managed by Selective. So
Okay.
they're gonna have the bylaws, the master documents.
Okay. So I have to call Selective then to get the bylaws for Trace Crossing?
I can't speak specifically to that, but I know that that particular association is managed by them.
Got it.
If you give me just a minute, if there's any other questions, I can look to see if there are any Trace Crossing documents saved.
Okay.
Or are you at what is your community?
Lake Trace?
Lake Trace. Okay.
Uh-huh.
While Misha's doing that, any final questions? I know we're over time. I want to be mindful of that. If not, I just want to express gratitude for anyone that's watching here live or the recording. Special thanks from Andy and Alex for you joining from Texas to share your expertise, and to you, Misha, as well. A shout out for our next one. We'll be sending out the official notice and invitation on Town Square, as well as we email these notices to all the boards of directors for all of our communities for our next one. The topic for April will be financial management. If you have ideas or topics you'd like to see us cover, get in touch with any of us here, and we're happy to add those. And I'll show this, just if you need to get in touch with us, our 24-hour customer service number, and then I have my email and my direct phone number here at the bottom if you want to call me and say, hey, we'd like a topic on this or that, or whatever we can help with. We're happy to help in any way possible.